Hello and welcome to the studio. I'm really glad you could join me today. This first lesson is going to be very quick. It's just an overview of the materials. I'm trying to keep the cost down. So at the time of filming, the cost of the materials that you'll probably need to buy will be right around $30. Now, there'll be other items, but there'll be found items from around your house. So the first thing, there are things where you can afford to spend less, and then other areas where it really makes sense to spend a little bit of money just to improve the outcomes. I really want the experience to be a pleasant one. If you're not having fun, then what's the point? So anyways, to that end, one of the first items that you'll want to get is a nice watercolor block. It looks like a pad of paper, but the paper will be thicker and heavier. It'll also have a more texture than what you'd find in regular printer paper. And also, the next thing you'll notice that's different about these is that the paper, instead of with a pad where you'd find one side bound, all four sides of this are bound, and that's why they call it a block. So there's just one little spot at the top here, and you'll see this on other blocks, no matter what kind you get. Oh, and I should say, there's a link in the description below to a page with links to all the different products that I'll be covering. So anyways, but if you, no matter which paper you get, which block you get, you'll find that on the top, I'll go into more detail when we start to actually use the paper, but there's just one little spot where you can stick in a knife. I like to use a butter knife, which is another thing you'll probably need, but you can stick in a butter knife and you can actually release the paper from the block that way. So it's not very difficult to do at all. But that's a difference from what you might see with other, well, what you would see with other pads of paper. It does seem a bit expensive. I think this one was right around $15, and it's $15 for 15 sheets. But the benefit of having these blocks is that the paper will remain flatter. You'll still get a little bit of buckling. I don't know if you've ever tried watercolor before. You'll know that the paper tends to buckle, and by binding all the sides, you reduce that from happening. You don't eliminate it, but you reduce it. You also reduce it with a thicker paper. So this is something where it makes sense to spend a little bit of money. You don't need to get really fancy. You can certainly spend more than this, but I wouldn't recommend it for now. So this is a good board. I've already used this one, and I'm happy with it. So I would recommend it. So that's the first thing. The next thing you'll need are some good watercolor brushes. Not great. These are what I would call introductory brushes, and it's nice to have a range of sizes. These are all what are called round brushes, and there are other brushes that you can use, but for purposes of this course, you'll be fine just using round brushes. And this will be a nice place to start. I would say that you'd probably get a couple of years out of these. Not heavy use, but even as you advance, you'll probably still want to use these from time to time. So they seem like good brushes. Again, I've used these, and so far I've been happy with them. So they range in size from number 2 up to 10. The numbers aren't really that important. You just want a nice range of sizes. When you do get the brushes, they will come looking like this, and they'll be really stiff. So you don't want to just pull them out of the package and use them. What you want to do is actually get some water into them. Maybe go to a sink and get some warm water running, not hot, just warm. And we'll go over here. Actually, let me set up a different angle here. Yeah. Under the water, you'll just want to rub the brush, and it'll be stiff when you start, but you want to rub the brush in the palm of your hand under the running water. And what that is doing is just rinsing out what's called gum arabic. It's perfectly safe. It's what you find in regular watercolors. But they use that to help maintain the shape of the brush during shipping. And yeah, but you just want to get that out so that when you go to use it, it's a nice, soft, bristled brush. If you just try and use it out of the package, you're going to not be a very happy camper. So that's something to keep in mind. I'll just rinse that out. Now, let's see, there's, oh, I've got this little tiny travel bottle, and it's just got water in it. There's a link to a travel set in the description. If you can find it locally, or if you already have one, this is usually something that you'd use for a hand cream or a shampoo. It's just got a little click up tab there, so you can get just little drops of water out. And that's really handy when you are first starting out and you want to wake up the colors in your palette. And I say wake them up, you're adding a little bit of water to get that pigment flowing. And this is a lot handier. You can do it with a brush, but this saves you having to rinse out the brush all the time. If you just want to add a little water here and there. Sometimes when you're mixing the colors, you want to add a little bit more water. Instead of going to the pot to grab more water, you can just grab this instead. So this is really handy. The link I have is a set of 4. It's 2 like this and 2 different. I would say, just pull one of these for your watercolor and the rest can be for travel. Or if you already have one for travel, what you can do is just dump out the contents. Make sure you wash it really thoroughly. You don't want any soap in here. But if you can get it nice and clean, if you already have one, use that. So that's the third thing. The last thing is kind of a funny thing for me. You need paint. And like I say, I'm trying to keep the cost down. And I think I've already used these, and I was surprised, but Crayola. We are going to be using Crayola watercolors. And this is a basic set. It's got 8 colors. You'll notice, let me move that out of the way. We have 8 colors. We have black and brown, and then we have primary and secondary colors. We don't have white, and I did that on purpose. You can get white. You can get a 16 color set, but watercolor is translucent. What that means is that the pigment won't fully obscure whatever is underneath it. So if you do a real thin layer of it, you'll get the white from the paper that comes through. And when you're just starting out, I think it's a really good idea that you learn how to use the paper and you learn how to use the layers of watercolor. If you want to use white, that's fine, but don't look upon it as something that you can cover over with, because in watercolor, that's really difficult to do, and it's not a good idea. You won't be happy with the effect. So this is a nice basic set. Really, all you need are red, yellow, and blue, and black is good for tone. But those are the 4 you really need. The other ones are extras. So, yeah, we're going to be using watercolor. And as a professional artist, this is funny for me. But really, I was surprised. They do work rather well. And it's all you really need to get started in watercolor. This is a couple dollars. So if you decide for some strange reason that you don't like watercolor, you're not going to be out a lot of money. With the brushes, if you decide you don't like watercolor, but maybe you want to do oils or you want to do acrylic, those brushes will work for those mediums too. So just something to keep in mind. As funny as it sounds, we're going to be using Crayola. Now the next item, those are the things you'll probably need to buy. And after that, you're going to be looking at found items. So items around the house that you probably already have. One of the first things you're going to need after your pigments and whatnot is you're going to need water. It is watercolor. And I've already covered one way that you can put water onto the palette and use that. But you also need to be able to clean your brushes. So for that, what we're going to need is a nice jar. Now, I prefer glass, but you don't have to use glass. This is a pickle jar. So what you want is a nice wide mouth. And this is a pretty good sized one. If you don't have one that's this size, that's okay. I would say the minimum size would be this. This is a salad dressing jar. So this would be about the size minimum, I would say. You could also use, I've also used peanut butter jars, which are great for traveling because you don't have to worry about them breaking. So, and you know, you can also keep a lid too. So there we go. Now, I like to have two jars. This one I use for cleaning my brushes. And this one is when I need just a little bit of water, just fresh water. So this water should never get dirty. If you can, I'd get two different sized, and I would use the larger one for cleaning because that allows the pigment to settle to the bottom. And so you're going to get a cleaner brush out of that. So that's that. You could also use, I've also used yogurt containers. So anything that'll hold a liquid. Clear is best. White is acceptable. But I would go clear first just so that you can see better. But there's that. Now, when you do rinse your brush, so I'll just rinse my brush here real quick. You'll get probably more water than you want on the brush. So what's nice to use is an old rag. I prefer old white t-shirts. The rag should be white. That way, when you're cleaning your brush, if you don't quite get all the pigment out, you can see right away. You can see there's a little bit of coloration here and there where I didn't quite get all the color out from previous times. I like to have two rags. So I use one for wiping down the brush after I clean them. The other one I like to put my other brushes on. This is really nice because it keeps them from rolling around. And if there's a little bit of extra water in there, it gets soaked up. So that's that. Now, another item which would be really helpful is if you have some paper towels. And paper towels are really nice. I like to keep one folded up. Sometimes I'll be working and I'll have paint on the brush, but there'll be like maybe a little drop of water, and you say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, if you're working over your painting and you get that drop of water, it might run down and then drop onto the work surface, and you'll get undesirable results. So if you have just a little bit of water on the edge, you can wipe that off. And what's nice is if you've got paint on here in the brush, it's okay if you get this dirty because this is disposable. Another thing that's really nice with paper towels is you can actually use them to pick up pigment off of the painting. So if you want to pull off a little bit of water or a little bit of paint, you can do that. And we'll go into that in more detail. But it's really good to have some paper towels available. Now, something else that's going to be available to you is drawings that you can download and print out, and you can use those to, you can transfer them to the watercolor paper, and that'll help you get started with these lessons if you want to follow along. You don't have to do that. Don't expect great art. Hopefully you'll have something that you enjoy and appreciate, but don't worry if you can't download them. This is just an extra to kind of save you a little bit of time. Either way, in the transferring process, which I'll go over in a different video, we'll be using a pencil. This is a number 2. It doesn't have to be. This isn't a test, but this is a number 2 pencil. And you use that in the process of transferring it. Like I say, I'll go over that in another video, but you'll want to have a pencil available. Even if you're not transferring the images, it's nice when you're starting out if you can draw what you're going to paint first. So having a pencil available just to draw just a light sketch on the paper of what you want to paint is really useful. So you know where you're headed and you know where the lines are. So you may not stay in the lines, but you know where they are. So a pencil is really a good thing to have. I think we're getting close to the end of our equipment list. I went over this briefly in the beginning, but you'll want to have a butter knife. You don't want something that's sharp. You just want something that's thin. So something like this is about right. And as I showed you before, that's just to get in there and release the paper from the block when you're done. So you want to make sure you want to make sure you're absolutely done before you remove the paper from the block. You can still paint on it afterwards, but it's not as nice. So that's an overview of the materials we'll be using during this course. Like I said earlier, if you follow the link in the description below, that'll take you to a full list of the items you'll need. If you click on the links for the individual items, that'll take you to Amazon. And if you buy through that link, that'll help me out a little bit. But if you already have the items, by all means use those. Or if you can find them locally, do that as well. But yeah, if you click on the link, that helps me out and I'd appreciate it. So I think that's where we'll stop this video. I hope you found this useful. Probably a bit of a surprise with some of the materials. I was surprised the Crayola does actually work. And it is similar enough in characteristic to what I use that it'll get you started. So by all means, don't spend a lot of money on this. Make sure it's something you enjoy, make sure it's something you want to pursue, and if you do, then we'll worry about the more expensive stuff and the stuff that'll last longer. This will work for now. So with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope this video finds you in good health and good spirits. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.